played hardcore Minecraft several times before, but never lasted very long. But after watching Luke the Notable, I decided to give it another try. I spawned in a random hardcore world using the new snapshot, and I spawned right in the middle of an oak and birch forest. So I began punching some trees, as we do when we play Minecraft. I certainly didn't want to stay in the forest though. I ran out of the forest and onto the plains, and there was a ruined portal. You can tell by the Christmas package that it is Christmas time. It's actually the day after Christmas. But there was bound to be some goodies in this chest, but I hit the jackpot. Enchanted golden armor, leggings, and 2 chest plates, and a couple of other goodies. I didn't see any sheep on that plain, just some white horses, so I decided to move on, but I definitely didn't want to spend the night in the dark oak forest with no bed, so I crafted a boat and set off down the river. It was a pretty nice waterway, but the whole point was to get through this forest and find someplace more appropriate to set up a base. And I didn't really find anything here, except I did run across some sugarcane, and that will be good for later. The river ended, and I took off running through the mega taiga. Didn't want to spend the night there either. Although I suppose I could have climbed one of these super tall trees. The point was to find a plains, find some sheep, make a bed. I got out of the forest and onto some plains. And still no sheep. But I couldn't keep looking for them because night was falling. It was time to dig in. I built a hole in the ground, covered myself partially with some wood and some dirt, and set out to spend the night in my little hole. Hurry up, it's getting dark. I hunkered down half the night until who should I see? My least favorite mob, a witch. She immediately hit me with a potion. I don't know what it was, but it didn't seem to hurt me. Then she hung out in my doorway until I killed her. It took a long time because all I had was a wooden axe. But obligingly she kept returning until I could finally kill her. I climbed out of my hidey hole and started back across the plains. I hadn't gone very far when in the distance I spotted a village. Hooray! It wasn't much of a village, only 5 houses and 5 villagers, but they had an iron golem, they had some goodies, they had a pile of hay, they had beds, they had everything I wanted. I locked the villagers in their houses, picked out a house for my own use, and took everything that wasn't nailed down that I could find useful. On day 3 I began smoothing out the plateau next to the village with the highest point. That would be where my permanent base was going to be. Then I ran over to that little outcropping of rock in the distance and dug up as much coal as I could find. And there was quite a bit of coal laying around, just waiting for me to take advantage of it. There was a hole next to my house. I explored it, lit it up, and then covered it over with dirt, so I wouldn't have to deal with it anymore. On day 4 I began disassembling all the buildings that were not housing the villagers. I could use this material sometime in the future, waste not, want not. The next day I finished that up. Going to use these stairs sometime in the future, I'm sure. Then I chopped down most of the trees that were right next to the village. I wanted the wood, and I also didn't want creepers sneaking up on me. Finally, I began laying out the foundation for my base. I was going to go with kind of an industrial design, something I'd been thinking about. This would be a chance to play with it a little bit. And I wasn't thinking about doing anything too fancy, but with all the worrying about dying that I was doing. The next day I went back to the outcropping, both for more coal, but more importantly, for stone. That was going to be the main building material for the walls of my base. While I was working, I noticed that in the distance there was another ruined nether portal. Had to go and check that out. It didn't have nearly the goodies in it that the first one did. But hey, golden axe. By day 7 I had a pretty good foundation for my base, and I decided to chop a hole in it because this was going to be where my mine was. And I dug down pretty far, and I was able to use those stair blocks that I had taken off the top of some of the villager houses as stairs down into the mine. By day 8 I had smelted up quite a bit of regular stone from the cobblestone that I had dug up, and I was able to start on the walls of the base. I also continued to delve down deeper into the mine. I dug up lots and lots of coal. The morning of day 9 I looked out the window and saw a group of pillagers. The only weapon I had was a stone sword, so I decided to lure them over to the iron golem. He did the rest. By day 10, the walls of my headquarters were big enough that I needed to start thinking about windows. So I ran down to the edge of the shore and scooped up some sand. While the sand was smelting into glass, I got ready for the windows and doors to be placed. Day 11, I started taking down another one of the villager houses. Get all those supplies, especially all of that wood. And I was finally ready to put in the windows. At least some of them. The next day I worked on getting some more of the ground around the headquarters leveled out. And I finished enclosing the land around the headquarters base. With a completely closed in yard, it was time to lure in some sheep. Start my own herd. On day 14 there was a wandering trader, so I murdered him for his leads. I spent a lot of time trying to tame the 2 llamas, but they wouldn't stop spitting at me, so in the end I just had to eliminate them both. Now that I had leads, though, I was able to quickly capture a couple of pigs for my own pig farm. I needed more stone and more coal, so it was back to the outcropping where I could easily have access to both. With the walls of the headquarters building completed, it was time to put in the stairway to what would eventually be the second level. And so it was time to move completely into the new headquarters building, pack up the bed, all the supplies, take the doors with me, and put them all in the new base. After spending the first night in the new headquarters building, it was time to continue on down into the mine. I was only maybe halfway to where I needed to be to start finding diamonds. But at this level, I found a hole in the wall. This hole led to a giant pit, as well as a series of tunnels that no doubt were all over the inside of my base. And I wanted nothing to do with the monsters that were in there, at least not now. I had my gold chest plate and my gold leggings, but I was not in a position to go looking for trouble. I put a little window here to remind myself that eventually I need to go clear this out and light it up. In the meantime, I continued digging in the other direction. The new base was done, except for the roof. So it was time to get rid of the villager house that I had originally stayed in. I was going to need this land for farms. It was finally time to pick up a couple of cows, and with the leads I got from the wandering trader, it was easy. I began making some fenced-in areas so I could keep my individual animals separated. Day 19, I spent the entire day mining, and I almost got down to diamond level. But in the meantime, I found lots and lots of gold, iron, and coal. Day 20 was finally time to finish up the roof of the headquarters building and get it all lit up. I spent the rest of the day removing the crops and gardens from the original village. First thing the next morning, I noticed there were some unwelcome guests. So I went up on the roof to get a look at them. Another group of pillagers. And yes, the golem was still alive down there, so I decided I would deal with them the same way that I did last time. Saying goodbye to the cow and the chicken, I quickly ran past the pillagers, caught a couple of arrows in the back, but just made it past the golem, and he took care of everything else. Then I went to work planting some carrots and other crops inside my fenced-in area. I made a pen for my 2 chickens and then threw in all the eggs that I had collected until I had a pretty good collection of chickens. The next morning I harvested wool for the very first time. I expanded my farms to include potatoes. And I finally built a pen for my 1 cow. Day 23 saw me on the hunt to expand my cattle herd. Now I've got 3 of them. With all the different animals in place now, it's time to do a little not so select breeding. It's back into the mines, and I have finally reached level 11. Now I can start branching off and doing a little branch mining. It's back to the mine on day 24 to do even more mining. I'm also getting those wooden steps placed so it'll be nice and easy to get back out. Back on the surface, I've smelted up some smooth stone so I can put it as a trim around the edges of the headquarters building. This definitely looks better. It'll look better still when I add some of these same stones beside the stairways. Day 25, it's back to mining. And bingo, my very first diamonds. Unfortunately, there are only 2. I also found some copper. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. I mined late into the night last night and was late getting to bed, so for the first time there were some mobs that spawned. Fortunately, none of them inside my fenced-in area, but I need to get this lit up. There we go, some creepers and some skeletons. Get those torches put everywhere. I finally got around to planting those sugar canes that I found on the very first day. I take a minute to survey my domain. It looks pretty modest, but then my primary goal has been to stay alive, and I am. I decided it's time to explore the countryside, so I'm going to start by heading east. There's a taiga biome over here, and some sunflowers. I decided to climb a tree as high as I can and build a tree, I guess, to see if I can find something else in the surrounding area. There's a dark forest biome and some plains, and I can see a mega taiga off in the distance, but that's about it. So it's time to head home. The next day I'm going to go west, so I start off over the little outcropping where I've done so much mining and decide I'm going to go over the mountain and see what's on the other side. At the top of the mountain I find llamas, sheep, a cow, and a cat. Looking west, I see even more mountains, but I decide to continue on. On the far side of the mountains, I find a plain and an ocean, but no village. Nothing else of interest really either. I take a slow roundabout way back, harvesting a lot of resources along the way, and eventually camping out under the stars. Day 30, I make it back to the home base. I've got lots of coal and lots of other supplies that I found along the way. That night I decide to stay up late and see if there are any places that are unlit inside of my fence. Everything looks pretty good. Day 31, it's back to more mining. The mine's looking more expansive, but I've still only found a total of 6 diamonds. Well, here's a few more at least. 4 to be exact. I also venture into my first real cave exploration. Although I don't go very far. My sugar cane is finally grown up enough to harvest a little bit of it, and I use that to plant some more. I decided to continue my exploration, this time taking a boat through the swamp and heading in a southerly direction. I literally go just around the corner and discover a village bigger and better than the one I started with. This one has a blacksmith, and that means a chest. Not bad. A saddle. It's been a long day of locking the villagers in their houses and taking all their stuff. In the morning I finish up, including getting all of that hay. Then it's time to head back home. I decide I want a golem of my own, so I build one. The last direction to go is north, and that's the direction I came from, so I already know there's a mega taiga over here. But I can go over here, collect some pumpkins, and chop down some wood, and that'll be good. When I get back home, I think it's time to finally start thinking about doing something with the villagers. So I'm going to build a villager central, kind of a villager breeder home thing right here. I want to hide all the torches around here, so I was thinking of covering them over with some wool. Unfortunately, I don't have any green dye. And then I realize, right in my hand, I have a pair of shears. I might not be able to cover the flames with green wool carpeting, but at least I can collect a bunch of leaves and cover the flames that way. Just dig a hole 2 deep, stick a torch down at the bottom, and then put leaves over them. The next day it's a little back to the farm, breeding the animals, picking up some crops, and then it's back to the basement where I build rooms for a future enchanting area, a future nether portal, and a future storage area. It's back to the villager area. Gonna get them walled in before I can let them out. The villager area is coming together. While I'm getting things cleaned up, they're wandering around, getting to know each other again, and some of them have even got professions since I put out a couple of workstations. I've got a farmer and an armorer and a mason. One of them walked right in front of me while I was doing some work here, and I thought I was doomed since they have their own golem now, but apparently he decided to let it go. Day 38, I was back at work underground. But the next day I was back putting the finishing touches on the villager building. I gotta think of a better name for it than that. That night I even spent the night with the villagers. Had to bring my own bed. The next morning I added a bunch of beds so that it would always have room for company. Then it was time to give them a housewarming gift of a couple of stacks of carrots. This made them very happy. Within minutes, there were little munchkin villagers running around. The next day was devoted to breeding up the cattle. I'm going to need to harvest leather soon for my enchanting station, and also harvesting the various crops that I've got around the building. I spent the next day cleaning up the landscape between the headquarters building and the villager home. Still working on the villager home. Now I'm putting on a roof. You might notice there are lots of little villager babies running around down there now. I especially want to make sure I've got it lit up in here. Day 46, I stop and take a look around my base and think, what a dump. But at least the villagers have some place to live. Then it's back down into the mine looking for diamonds, which I do not find. The next day at least I find some lapis. I'm finally getting around to covering up the last of the torches hanging out in the yard. And there you have it, 50 days of hardcore Minecraft. I have to say I'm a little embarrassed at how little I got done. I was too busy worried about not dying. But then again, I didn't die, so that's got to be a win. I'm probably going to continue on this world, but I don't think I'm going to do any more videos like this. Dealing with more than 8 hours of video to edit it, to find the best pieces, is a very difficult job. If you enjoy videos like this, check out Luke the Notable. He does it best. I may do an update video at 100 days, unless I die first. If I don't die, I'll see you then. In the meantime, keep on Minecrafting.